Hi everybody, I'm Zilla Blitz, and welcome to episode 2 in our campaign game with By Stealth and Sea, the 2020 war game from DVG Games, where you get to command a unit of Italian Frogmen over a series of 9 missions in the Mediterranean in World War II. Now, when we left at the end of episode 1, we were about a third of our way through our first mission. And we left at quite the cliffhanger. SLC-3, whose operator crew was stunned and immobile in the water because their battery had failed on their unit, had a British patrol craft bearing down on them, ready to attack. So we're going to jump in and find out the fate of SLC-3. But this all sits within the context of the bigger mission. We have 3 SLC units, all trying to extract some damage on British shipping. So let's jump in and find out what happens in the rest of this mission. So before we pick up the action where we left off, let's just do a quick recap overview of the mission and its goals. This is an overhead shot of Gibraltar Harbor on the 30th of October 1940, right at midnight when our mission started. Now our 3 SLC units are in the bottom center of this overhead, and their goal is to proceed north and northwest to try to attack and sink targets of opportunity either inside the harbor walls there, or to a lesser degree, the 3 cargo ships that are outside of the harbor to the left to the kind of the northwest of their position. Now with that being said, let's jump in and pick up the action where we left off right about 1:30 in the morning. Each mission is 6 hours, consisting of 12 30-minute turns, and when we last left off, we were just approaching the end of our 3rd turn, about 1:30 in the morning. And let's summarize what's happened so far. The bottom left of our screen, we can see SLC-1. Now this crew has had a wetsuit fault, and it has a problem with its warhead, which will need to be fixed, but it's undetected right now. It is submerged, and it's moving northwest. SLC number 2 has had a breathing gear fault. It's probably in the best shape of all our SLCs. It's detected. You can see a patrol craft number 2 right on top of it, but it's moving north directly towards the harbor. SLC-3, however, has had a hard time of things. A wetsuit failure led to the crew being stunned, and they tried to regain their functionality, but they failed. They're still stunned and kind of fumbling around. Not only that, the battery on the SLC has failed, making the SLC immobile. They're stuck on the surface. They're stunned and groggy. And also, we noticed they've been detected with Patrol Craft 1 bearing down right on top of them. This is where we left the action at the end of our first episode, and we're going to pick up the action right here. Patrol Craft number 1 is bearing down on them. We're going to draw a card. If it's a 7 or greater, SLC-3 is hit, the crew is killed, and we lose their functionality, and we lose SLC-3 for the rest of this mission. Let's pick up the action now. It's a 9. We have lost SLC-3. Durand, De Penne, and Bianchi have met their fate, and SLC-3 is removed from the game. So our first losses of this campaign, they had just a rough time. I mean, everything that possibly could go wrong went wrong. Their wetsuits went wrong. They couldn't recover. Their battery broke. Their battery broke again. Yeah, it was pretty bad for SLC number 3. That brings us to the end of this turn, our 3rd turn. Now we have to clean things up a little bit. We're going to flip these patrol craft over to in functioning. Any patrol craft that is 4 or more spaces away is removed, but they're all 3 away from SLC number 2. So yeah, nothing there at the moment to help us out, and we advance the time marker to 2 o'clock in the morning. Let's continue on to turn number 4. So turn number 4, the first thing we need to do is perform a fault check. SLC 1, 2, or 3. Hoping for a 3 because that's been knocked out of the game, right? And SLC number 1, that's not good. That's one of our hopeful movers here. Let's see what we get for a fault card for it. We get the prototype. Okay, so let's go take a look and see what this means. Actually, before we go take a look, let's make our repair check, because if we do roll a 6, then we discard the card and it's all good. So let's get a 6. 3. No. Okay, so let's go toss this up on the card and see what happened. So this actually isn't that bad for this one. It's just the battery fault, which means we take off one of the 2 elements from that, and then we discard this card. Now, if it happens again, they can no longer move, and that's bad. But so far, that's actually a relatively minor problem to have, in that SLC-1 is still submerged and still functioning. All right, let's take some action here. So SLC1, we can see way up here in the corner, that's a cargo ship. I think we should go for it. And that seems to be a pretty good direction to head. Let's get SLC1. Now, if we are submerged and underwater, we can automatically move forward 2 squares. So that's good. And we will stay undetected and under the water, stealthily moving towards the cargo ship. Now, things get a little bit more interesting here for SLC number 2 because they are detected. However, we're submerged, and once again, if we perform the move where we go 2 squares ahead, straight ahead, we use up our points, we're kind of starting to approach the harbor here. We will also lose our detected marker because we're submerged. So let's do that with SLC number 2 and get rid of that detected marker. Now SLC number 3, of course, is done, so that brings us to the end of this turn. Let's go to the harbor defenses now. All right, so Searchlights checks first on SLC number 1. They need an 11 or better because we're submerged, and they get a 7. That doesn't work. SLC number 2, likewise, undetected. It needs an 11 or better, and they get a 6. So we passed the Searchlight phase, no problem. We've gone through a lot of cards now, actually, so somewhere in here is that 12 again, which is not a good one to pull. Let's go now to our patrol craft response. All of the patrol craft, all 4, are on the board, so we can't have any more patrol craft responses. So we go immediately now to the movement phase. Now, for the movement phase, we take a look at this chart right here because they don't know where we are. We're undetected. So let me just check that, actually. Yes, so that was my mistake. Even though all the patrol craft are still on the board, we still have to draw to see if we are detected by patrol craft. Although we wouldn't move one in front of our space because all 4 are already in action here. So SLC number 1, to see if a patrol craft detects us, we are submerged outside the harbor, and so we need a 10 or greater. We get a 5. So SLC number 1 stays undetected. SLC number 2, which we think is painted in zebra white, orange, and psychedelic pink because it's always been spotted by patrol craft, likewise is now undetected and submerged. It needs a 10 or greater. A 7! Yay! Finally, SLC number 2. They must be like singing or something like that to get detected like that. SLC number 2 stays undetected. Excellent. So now we move our 4 patrol craft. So we're going to move our 4 patrol craft based on this 8-sided die and this little chart that they give us. So let's see where patrol craft number 1 goes. Actually, it does matter because it could get removed from the game depending on which way it goes or stay in the game. We get a 7, which means it stays in place. Let's do number 2, which is up here. Now, we obviously want them to stay far away from us, but not so far away that we kind of lose them from the board. Let's see what we get here. We get a 3, which means it moves northeast. So patrol number 2. And that's fairly good because that keeps it on the map, but keeps it nice away from us where it can't attack. Now, for SLC number 3, even though we're undetected, it could attack us if they come over us here. So that's not good. I think. I have to check to see if they can attack if they haven't detected us. But let's see what the roll is up first here. We get a 3. A 3 sends it to the northeast. So we faked them out a little bit here. They're searching in the wrong direction for us. Lastly, patrol craft number 4 gets a 5. A 5 sends it south, which would be off the map. But honestly, this doesn't... I think that means it stays in place. I'll double check that. It doesn't really matter because it's more than 4 squares away from us. So we're going to, 4 or more squares away, we're going to remove these at the end of this turn anyway, and it can't attack us. So now we have no patrol craft attacks that can undercase. That means we've reached the end of this turn. Let's clean up the actions here. The first thing, we have no exhausted patrol craft to take care of, so that's fine. We advance the time marker to 2:30. We're about 5 turns of our 12 turns in so far. And then any patrol craft 4 or more squares away from any SLC are removed, and they can recycle back into action. It's not like they're gone from the game. It's just that they have faded out of the appearance of gone back to the harbor or something like that. So that's the end of our 4th turn. Let's go to turn number 5. So turn number 5 starts with a fault check. Hopefully forget SLC number 3 here. SLC number 1, that's not good because that's our good one. Gosh, everything's breaking on SLC number 1. Let's see what we get for a fault check card here. We got the warhead fault. Now, because the warhead is already broken, it doesn't impact it. So SLC 1 has a warhead problem already, so it can't have a second one. which means that we just discard that, and that's actually a pretty good one for us to get. So we passed that. Now it's time for us to take action. Let's think a little bit about what we want to do. All right, so let's think about our actions for SLC number 1 with Tessé and Pedretti aboard. We have two choices. We could either go for this cargo ship over here, or we could turn and try to get up through this torpedo net. However, I think the problem with trying to go for the cargo nets is that we have a defective warhead. We're going to have to turn twice, which is going to take time. We have to clear the cargo net, get up under the ship, and then attach the warhead. With the amount of time that we have left and the likelihood that other things are going to go wrong, I don't think we're going to have enough time to make it before our mission would end. So with that in mind, we're going to send them for the easier cargo ship target over here. So we're going to have them push 1, 2 underwater, burn up both of their points, and head right for the cargo ship over here. Now the next question is, what do we do with SLC number 2? Let's take a look. SLC number 2 has a couple of options here that are probably more apparent than the others. We have 2 open torpedo net areas here. Now if this one's closer, but we would have to turn, go here, turn, go here, then you get under the ships is another turn. That's a lot of turning, and turning takes time, especially when we're submerged, and it's not always successful. Well, it's going to take a lot of time to do that. I think even though up here, this ship is farther away, if we go here, we can turn once, and then it's a straight shot all the way in. So SLC number 2 is aiming for the big goal here of getting past the torpedo net. It's going to go full straight ahead right against the little seawall there and then stop. And it is still undetected as of now. Let's go to the harbor defense systems. All right, so harbor defense system time. Let's see what we've got. Searchlights, looking for SLC number 1. We're submerged. We need an 11 or greater to find us. We get an 8. That one's good. Let's pick for SLC number 2. Another 8. That one's good. So we are safe so far from that. Now we need to roll for patrol craft response. Both of these are submerged, so it is a 10 or greater. Let's roll for SLC number 1 first. We're not in the harbor or anything. 11. Darn it. But that's not too bad, right? Because even though this patrol craft number 1 shows up here, we're submerged, we're detected. That's fine, because we can stay submerged, move ahead 2, and lose that detection marker. So maybe not too bad. Now let's get the next one, see if there is a detection response on SLC number 2. Once again, they are submerged. They need a 10 or greater, because, is that right? Yeah. Surface submerged, yeah, 10 or greater. We get a 4, we are okay. So SLC2, which started out getting detected pretty much all the time, now has managed to stay pretty much undercover. Let's move our patrol craft that are here, and then we will finish up the turn. Yeah, so these patrol craft, even though SLC1 has been detected, they have to be within 3 hexes of it to react to that. So we're just going to make some random movement here, and I'm going to do that off camera because I don't think it really has too much of a bearing on this now. So let's take a look and see how they move after we perform that action. Alrighty, so here's the movement after that. Patrol craft number 2 stayed what it was. Patrol craft number 3 actually closed in on us, which is not necessarily what we want there. Let's clean up this turn. This patrol craft goes to ready state. This SLC1 is detected. We advance our time marker, which is down below me, to 3 in the morning. This will be our 6th turn of 12, is a 3 o'clock turn. And that brings us, this one is 1, 2, 3, 4 away. So patrol craft number 2 is removed from the game. And let's continue on now to our 3 o'clock turn. All right, so we got to see which SLC has a problem. Let's get SLC 3 because it's already out. Yes, SLC number 3. So because that one's already knocked out, we don't do anything with this. Now it is our turn again. Alrighty, things getting close here for SLC number 1. We're gonna lose its detection marker by staying submerged and move 2 full movement points straight ahead underneath the patrol craft, popping up on the other side, but losing that detection marker. That seems to be a good move for them. SLC number 2 wants to start to break up here towards the edge of the screen to one of these ships. It's going to use its pull points to make a successful maneuver and stay undetected here. So SLC number 2 is just going to turn. That brings us to the end of our movement. Let's go into the enemy detection phase. All right, let's check our spotlights. We're submerged. We need 11s or greater to find us. We get a 7 on SLC number 1 and a 9 on SLC number 2. We stay undetected by the searchlights. Let's go to patrol craft response now. This would be a key one here because we want to stay undetected so these don't react to us, because that would be a very bad thing. The first one, let's do SLC number 1. We are undetected and we are submerged outside of the harbor. So a 10 or greater is what they need. We get an 8, so SLC number 1 stays undetected. SLC number 2 likewise needs the same number. Ooh, a 9. They thought they saw something, but then they changed their minds. So we stay undetected. I'm now going to go ahead and to move our patrol craft. All right, so after performing the patrol craft movement, this one went closer to us, kind of a little bit off track. SLC number 1, this patrol craft number 1 got completely faked out by SLC 1's move. They went in the opposite direction, gaining us some breathing space between them. So lucky moves for us, and lucky we stayed undetected. Let's go now to the cleanup phase, which basically involves just advancing the turn marker to the 3:30 a.m. mark. So we're approaching turn 7 of 12. All right, once again, we're hoping for SLC number 3, which is out of the game. SLC number 2. Let's see what we get a fault on. This could be kind of bad. We get, oh, that's not good. Ballast tank fault. So let's see, however, before we have to check the damage, let's see what happens here with the roll, because if we roll a 6 on it, then we fix it and it doesn't happen. I think the ballast means we actually have to surface, which would be bad. 2. Okay, so let's go check out the consequences of this one. So the ballast tank fault means that we take the marker off the ballast tank and put it on here. The effect of this means we immediately have to surface, which is not what we wanted to do. And until we fix it, it stays here and we cannot submerge. So let's go surface SLC number 1 and then we'll move on from there. This makes for interesting decisions for SLC number 2, but the first result is that it has to pop up onto the surface because it's had problems with this ballast tank. Let's figure out what we're going to do for actions. We'll start with SLC number 1. Alrighty, so SLC number 1, I think makes sense for it to continue on here. Now, we can do one little element here. We're going to move ahead 1 square, which is automatically successful, and a 1 square move, even though we're submerged, only takes 1 point. Then we're going to try to turn to face the cargo ship, and to face the cargo ship with 1 action point, it requires a die roll on our ops move because we are submerged. The pilot move, sorry. So our pilot skill, basically we only have 1 die, and it's a 4 that we need to be able to move. So we need a 4 or greater to successfully make this move. 6. Nice. It's awesome. So we make the successful turn. SLC number 1 is approaching its target. Now we do want to recall that it has a defective warhead. It has a problem with its warhead. So we have to fix that, get under the ship, and then see what we can do from there. So still lots of work to be done, but SLC number 1 with Tesse and Pedretti looking like our most likely crew to do some damage. Big question here is, do we have SLC number 2 race to the torpedo net, try to get through the torpedo net into the harbor, all while being on the surface, which has a very high chance of detection? In either way, I don't like our odds. I just think that staying on the surface is a death call at this point, especially when we get inside the harbor. We would need extremely good card rolls to pull it off, and when we need a lot of them, I think the only way we're going to make it is to be submerged. So we are going to spend our 2 action points and fix that ballast tank fault. So off camera, I've removed the ballast tank card fault and put the ballast tank marker back onto the SLC card. That means, although we're on the surface right now, we can submerge in subsequent turns, and the ballast tank's working again. It's time for us to do the Searchlights. Now, we only have a few cards left in this alert deck, and we know one of them's a 12, so then that's going to take out all the low cards, so things are going to get harder here as we go along. Let's check our Searchlights on SLC number 1 as it approaches the cargo ship. 11 or more to detect us. Ooh, a 10! Very lucky. If we were on the surface, we would have been detected. Let's go to SLC number 2. A 4. Excellent. So we stay undetected by Searchlights. Now, however, we need to figure out the patrol craft response. SLC number 1 is submerged outside of the harbor and undetected, so it needs a 10 or greater. Get a 5. SLC number 1 is making good progress here once they kind of adjusted for their wetsuit fault and regained kind of consciousness. SLC number 2, need an 8 or greater would detect it. This is feeling pretty rough for SLC number 2. Oh, nice. We got a 5. There's only a few cards left. It looks like we're going to get that 12 next turn, though. So Alrighty, so we stay undetected. I'm going to now move our patrol crafts on the board, and then we'll check for this turn. Alright, so patrol craft number 3 checked out the torpedo net. They went the wrong way. We're stuck up here, so we're good there. Still undetected. Patrol craft number 1 moved away from us a little bit, but they're still within range, so they stay on the board. I'm advancing the time marker to turn the 4 o'clock turn. We have 5 turns left, and that's about all we have to do. We don't remove any patrol craft at this point in time. Let's go to the 4 o'clock turn. So the first thing we need to do is to see which SLC has a fault, hoping for a 3. SLC number 1. Ah, that's not good. Here is our card. Let's see what we get. Breathing gear fault. Let's see if we fix it. We need a 6 first to fix it. A 3. No, that's not good. Okay, so we fail it. That means the breathing gear is gone. That one's actually not too bad. It just means the stamina check is -1. So SLC number 1 is that doesn't really impact its current situation. It just means any further stamina checks are at a -1 modifier. So not a problem for SLC number 1. We can have them still drive on. Let's make our move. So SLC number 1 is approaching that cargo ship. It has a warhead fault, so I think it's going to take its full move now and fix that warhead to get rid of that card, because we have to have it operational in order to be able to blow up the ship. So that will leave us ready to go under the cargo ship and detach our warhead, attach it, and then potentially escape. So SLC number 1 not too far away from potentially blowing up this cargo ship. SLC number 2 is going to use its points and dive. Now I don't think we're going to have enough time to sink this ship, sink this ship, but we may have enough time to at least get into the harbor before scuttling, which would get it a point if it could successfully do that. But yeah, I think we're too far away, but staying on the surface I think is going to be brutal for us. So let's go now to the harbor defense turn. All right, so harbor defenses here. We've only got 4 cards left, and we're going to pull them all. So we know 1 is going to be a 12, and we know that one of our crews are going to get detected, and we're going to pull all the low-level cards out of the deck. This is kind of bad, and it's going to happen on this turn. So SLC number 1 first. Hopefully, I'm hopeful that it kind of maybe hits SLC number 2, because they don't have a chance to blow up anything, I don't think. We want to keep SLC number 1 safe. Searchlights, they are detected on an 11 or greater. Nice, a 4. So SLC number 1 stays safe. Let's go to Searchlights now for SLC number 2. There it is. That's our 12. So they are detected by the Searchlights. I'm going to sort the card out here, and then we're going to do the patrol craft response. Alrighty, patrol craft response time now. Let's see what we've got for SLC number 1. They are submerged and not detected, not in the harbor, so a 10 or greater. A 3. Excellent. They are still undercover and moving forward. SLC number 2, which has been detected and submerged, they need an 8 or greater to have a patrol craft show up in front of them. They get a 4. Good. So no more patrol crafts here. However, the patrol craft response becomes a little bit clearer here. So let's sort out how these patrol crafts respond to our presence. So patrol craft number 1 rolled a 5, which means it moved away from us. So they are staying disengaged from us so far. Up here, though, let's go check at SLC number 2. SLC number 2 has been detected, and this patrol craft is within 2 squares. They can move 2 squares, so they are now spotted, and the patrol craft moves right on top of it, which means that they have to attack, which is bad. The attack for something submerged is a 10 or greater. To hit it, we're hoping they miss us. 7. Excellent. So the attack does not succeed. We should be able to evade them and lose our detection with our next subsequent move, too. Let's clean this turn up. There really isn't anything to do except to advance the turn marker. Let's go on now to the 4:30 turn. We're on turn 9 of 12. Time is running out for our heroes. So the first thing we need to do is to do our SLC fault one, hoping for a 3. 1. No, not SLC 1. Please, not SLC number 1. What do we get? If it's the battery, they can't move, and they're 1 square away from their target. That would be breathing gear fault. Excellent. That's good, because they already had the breathing gear fault break, which means we can just disregard it. Woohoo! That's good for us. Now let's go on to our movement phase. Alrighty, SLC number 1 with Tese and Pedretti have fixed their warhead. Their breathing gear's broken, their wetsuit malfunctioned, they recovered from being stunned, but now they can close on this cargo ship. So they can move, they can use one of their 2 operation points to move successfully underwater only 1 square. The next thing we have to do is to detach the warhead from the SLC device and attach it onto the ship. So the first thing we have to do is detach it, and then attach it is a subsequent move. So we're going to detach it. Now we only have 1 action point left, which means that it's an operational roll, and we need a 4 or greater to succeed at it. 2. Okay, so we're going to have to wait till next turn to be able to perform that. SLC number 2 has a patrol craft right on top of it, but we have the maneuver just to do that. We're going to move ahead on the water, submerged now. We're going to move ahead 2 squares and lose that detection marker. We're heading right for the torpedo nets up here. Excellent. So with this grand view of the battle scene, we have to do the harbor defense response at 4:30 in the morning now, hoping, especially for SLC number 1, if we could get them to blow this ship up, scuttle their craft, and then escape. That would be great. That would give us 3 victory points, and then if we could just have them scuttle or survive, that could give us 4 victory points. And if they get in the harbor, that would get us them an advancement. So it's all to do here. Searchlights on SLC number 1, they need an 11 or better. They get a 4. We're safe. On number 2, they get an 8 or better. We're safe. Let's go now to patrol craft response. We are out of the harbor and everything like that. We are submerged. We need a 10 or greater for them to pick us up. 9 or less and we're safe. A 7 on SLC number 1. SLC number 2 gets an 8. Excellent. We are still all to do. Let's wrap up this turn. Now, down here, the patrol craft between SLC number 1 and us is 4 squares away or more, so I'm removing that one from the board. Otherwise, we just leave the turn marker the way it advances it to 5 o'clock in the morning, and we are all done with this turn. Let's go to the last, or one of our 3 remaining turns. Alrighty, so first we perform in our 5 o'clock turn the SLC check to see which one has a fault. We get a 3. Excellent. That's the one that's not here, so we can skip that segment. Now it is our turn. Let's perform our action. Alrighty, SLC number 1 is going to detach its warhead using both of its movement points. That means we pull the warhead on top of the SLC. The next turn, we can attach it and get out of here. So things are looking hopeful for SLC number 1. Let's go to SLC number 2. All right, SLC number 2, submerged, is going to use both of its action points to automatically pass the torpedo net without needing a skill check, and it has successfully entered the harbor. Now, we don't have enough. We might have to really push it to see if we can go forward and get a warhead on here. It's possible, but by beginning into the harbor here, they will get a skill point if they survive this mission. So let's see what the harbor defenses do now. Okay, I'm going to pull on both cards, although just because they've gotten so far apart, I'm just going to show SLC number 1 as we make our checks. Searchlights, they need an 11 or better, hoping we can stay undetected, please. Oh, goodness. SLC number 1 is detected. That's not good. Okay, SLC number 2 gets a 5. They stay undetected. Now we need patrol craft response. SLC number 1 is detected. It is submerged, so they need an 8 or greater for patrol craft. Actually, if we could stay out of this, that would be pretty good. 5, they do not detect us. So we don't have a patrol craft appear in front of SLC number 1. That's good. Submerged, detected, we're outside of the harbor. Yeah. All right, so let's go to SLC number 2. Now this is a little different for them because they are inside the harbor. So we're submerged in the harbor. They need a 9 or greater to be detected. And they are. Patrol craft number 1 reappears right in front of, let's go up there to take a look at. Here we are. Patrol craft number 1 reappears right in front of SLC number 2 as they just cross into the harbor. All right, so now they are exhausted. They do not move. We don't have other crafts nearby. So let's sort out. Yeah, there's no harbor movement or attacking. Let's wrap up this turn, which is basically involves moving this to its not exhausted status, and we move our time marker closer to 5:30. We only have 2 turns left, which means that we really have to be judicious with what we're going to do with our actions here. Let's think through this as we get to the next turn. Let us roll on our 5:30 turn on this die. We need a 1 to roll for the fault. Hoping for a 3, please. SLC number 2, which is our one up in the harbor. Let's see what fault card we get. We get a transmission fault. Okay, we have to roll on this to see if it's a 6. We could fix it right away. We get a 3. We don't. So let's go check out SLC number 2 and see what the transmission fault means. Alrighty, SLC number 2 has a transmission problem, which means it cannot full move. So that pretty much ends its chances of ever blowing something up. I think what we're going to try to do for this one is probably scuttle on it. Let's go to our actions and see what we can do. Alrighty, so good news for SLC number 1 in our action here. We can take the warhead. There's a lot of stuff. Let's spread these out a little bit here. So it's detected, which is fine. But we're going to take the warhead and attach it to the cargo ship. Basically, by performing this action successfully, that blows up the cargo ship and removes it from the game. And that will give SLC number 1's crew a skill advancement should they survive. Now they're detected here. The good thing is that there's not going to be a chance for a patrol craft to get to their square before the next turn, which means that they're going to have a chance to scuttle their craft and escape on the last turn of the mission. Alrighty, SLC number 2 has some stuff to do. It's actually kind of looking pretty grim here because of what's happened. I didn't realize this, but they have no chance to blow anything up. So they are going to scuttle their craft, which basically removes them from the game. And that's a successful action if they use both of their points. So that does get us 1 victory point, which is good. Now we have to determine the fate of the SLC-2 crew. So let's go take a look at that and see what happened. So SLC-2 has scuttled their craft, which gets us our second victory point because we've sunken the ship, we've sunk 1 cargo ship, and we were able to scuttle SLC number 2. However, the big thing is, will they survive or will they get captured? And to do this, they have to perform an escape check. Now, the numbers for the escape check here aren't very good, however, because there are some modifiers. Basically, the basic roll is they need a 4 or higher on 1 die to succeed. However, there are some modifiers. It's -1, the ones that apply to us. It's -1 if it's inside the harbor, and it's -1 if there is no token on the breathing gear apparatus. So they normally need a 4 to survive. Because they have these problems, they add 2 to the die roll. They need a 6 or better to successfully get out and escape. They need a 1 in 6 chance that they would be, otherwise they're captured. And it's a 2. It's tough to see in the low light. So Birondelli and Pacagnini on SLC-2 are captured and their career has ended. So now we go to the harbor defenses for SLC number 1, which had been detected, so we don't roll on the searchlights. However, we do see for the patrol craft. I don't think this is going to matter because they're going to get 1 chance to try to escape and scuttle and escape before the patrol craft can get on top of them. But just to see what it is, they are, what we are, submerged and detected, an 8+. We get a 6, so they stay with no response by the patrol craft. Now the other patrol craft are basically out of range, so I'm going to remove them from the board, which means that we now advance a time marker to the very last turn to determine the fate of SLC number 1. Okay, the first thing we need to do is to roll for a fault check. We need anything except a 1. We get a 2, SLC number 2. They're already out, so that doesn't matter. Now we just go down to our final determination of what happens to SLC number 1. And what they are going to do is to basically perform a scuttle. So that will succeed, and that gets us to another victory point. And we're going to scuttle SLC number 1. Staring at the empty water, what we have to do now is to determine what happens to their fate. So SLC number 1. Tese and Pedretti. We've had 1 crew killed and we've had 1 crew captured. Can we get 1 crew survive? They will, after doing their scuttle move, we need them to see if they can succeed on their escape move. The die roll modifiers, they normally need a 4 or higher to succeed. They are outside the harbor. There's no SLC token on their breathing gear, so that's a -1. No patrol crafts in the hex or anything like that. The time is not earlier for a +1. Oh, +1 if the operator card is readied. So that does help them. And I didn't apply that die roll modifier to... I made a mistake there. I didn't apply that die roll modifier in the last escape check. But it didn't matter because they rolled a 2 and they would have needed a 5 or a 6. So, Tese and Pedretti have a 50% chance of surviving here. Okay, let's make the roll. See what we get. Come on, let's get them through. 4, 5, or a 6. Yes, a 4. So Tese and Pedretti have survived. That will mean we can get them an upgraded skill check on their next mission. And it gives us, if I'm not mistaken, yes, it gives us the 4 victory points we were hoping for. And with that, we've actually come to the end of our mission. So, all in all, I mean, I guess for the first mission, which I think is supposed to be pretty hard, I think we'll take it. We sank a cargo ship. We scuttled 2 of our SLCs for 2 more victory points. We... what else? We got inside the heart. Oh, it was 8. Yeah, sank a scout. And we had 1 crew survive for that 4th victory point. So those are our 4th victory points. And the crew of Tese and Pedretti get a skill bonus for the next mission. So there we go. Let me know what you think. That takes us to the end of our first mission. We will be back next week for Submarine Monday number 2, for mission number 2. With some sort of an upgrade, and Tese and Pedretti will be a little bit of an upgraded crew. As always, if you're interested in being crew members we're going to take from the waiting list, just let me know you want to be part of Submarine Monday, and we will get you involved in our next mission, and we will assign Tese and Pedretti to the top 2 people that have opted in from the previous waiting list. So we'll see you next week as we'll continue on with By Stealth and Sea.